A few seconds on your feed can do more damage than 100 real conversations. You've seen the videos. Someone says she needs a man making $500,000 a year because her maintenance is 20 grand a month. Another person calls spitting the check financial abuse. Someone else sells a course teaching women how to get a man to pay their rent without actually dating him. And then the comment sections explode. Men angry, women defensive. Everyone convinced the other side is the problem. But here's what most people miss. Viral dating clips aren't designed to help you build a healthy relationship. They're designed to win attention. Outrage is the business model. The more extreme the claim, the more likes, stitches, duets, and reaction videos it generates. Normal doesn't trend. We're two adults with jobs and we communicate respectfully doesn't go viral. Still, even if these clips represent a loud minority, they're having a real effect because they shape expectations. They teach people what to demand, what to fear, what to assume, and what to mock. And after enough exposure, a lot of men start to feel like dating isn't about connection anymore. It feels like a negotiation where the starting offer is deliberately insulting, and the end result is you being told you should be grateful to participate. So today I want to do something different. Not a rage fest, not a men versus women war drum. I want to walk through what's actually happening in modern dating culture, why these expectations are exploding online, why so many men are quietly opting out, and what a sane, realistic alternative looks like if you still want love without losing your peace. And quick disclaimer before we start. I'm not giving legal or financial advice. Laws vary by location. Every relationship is different. And if you're dealing with marriage, custody, or major assets, talk to a qualified professional. What I am doing is describing the patterns that are making people lose trust in the whole system. Because whether you love or hate these viral clips, one thing is undeniable. A lot of men are looking at the modern dating marketplace and saying, "This doesn't feel like partnership. This feels like a trap." Let's talk about why. There's a shift that's hard to ignore. For a growing number of people, dating is no longer framed as two individuals building something together. It's framed as a lifestyle acquisition strategy. Not everyone, not most people, but enough that the culture has changed. You'll hear language like, "If he can't afford me, he can't date me. My standards are my standards. I need a provider. I'm not going 50-50. On paper, some of these statements can be reasonable depending on values and context. People are allowed to want what they want. The problem is the tone and the math. A preference becomes a demand. A boundary becomes an ultimatum. A desire becomes an entitlement. And then the numbers get insane. When someone says their upkeep is $15,000 a month and they want a man to cover it as a baseline requirement, we're not talking about dating anymore. We're talking about sponsorship. We're talking about a relationship where one person's presence is treated like a luxury product and the other person is treated like a funding source. That's why so many men don't just feel rejected, they feel dehumanized. Like they're not being evaluated for character, compatibility, loyalty, or how they treat people. They're being evaluated like a walking credit score with shoulders. And the irony is, the more a man has his life together, the more allergic he becomes to deals that look one-sided. Successful men don't usually become successful by making emotional purchases with terrible return on investment. So when dating feels like constant extraction, pay here, prove there, fund this, upgrade that, many men don't get motivated, they get cautious. Then cautious becomes distant. Distant becomes indifferent. And eventually, they don't rage quit. They just quietly decide they're done. They don't even always announce it. They just stop asking women out. They stop using apps. They stop trying to impress. They stop auditioning. Because the current vibe in a lot of places is, you can be a good man, a faithful man, a hard-working man, and still be told you're not enough because you didn't book the right restaurant, you didn't buy the right bag, you didn't plan the right vacation, you didn't finance the right fantasy. And once a man realizes the goalposts aren't just moving, they're teleporting, he stops playing. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because it's not just about dating, it's about risk. A lot of men grew up believing marriage was the ultimate commitment. You build together, sacrifice together, protect each other, raise children, and create a legacy. And that can still be true when two people share values and act like a team. But many men now view legal marriage as something else entirely, a contract with upside uncertainty and downside certainty. Here's the fear, stated plainly. If things go well, you might have a great family. If things go badly, the penalties can be massive and long-lasting. Now, the reality is nuanced. Divorce outcomes vary wildly by country, state, income structure, prenups, length of marriage, and custody factors. Also, women can and do pay alimony or child support in some cases. And plenty of divorces are fair, mutual, and cooperative. But nuance doesn't erase perception, and perception is driving behavior. Many men have watched someone they know go through divorce and describe it like a slow-motion demolition. Legal fees, asset division, custody fights, child support calculations, sometimes spousal support, and years of conflict. Even in situations where the man wasn't abusive or unfaithful, he can still end up feeling like the system treats him as the default payer and default outsider. And that leads to a strategy shift. Men who still want companionship will commit emotionally, live together, even have a ceremony, but refuse the legal paperwork. Because in their mind, love shouldn't require a contract that can punish you for decades if the relationship fails. You can argue with that logic. You can say it's cynical. You can say it's fear-based. But you can't ignore how common it's becoming. And here's the deeper point. When a large number of men believe the legal framework is biased or unpredictable, they don't respond by being braver. They respond by reducing exposure. That's what humans do with perceived high-risk contracts. So if society wants more stable families, healthier relationships, and more marriages that last, we can't just shame men for being cautious. We have to acknowledge why they're cautious, and why trust me doesn't hit the same when the stakes are your home, your kids, and your future income. A major fuel source for modern dating delusion is the internet's fake version of money. Real wealth often looks boring. It's consistency, investments, businesses, budgets, delayed gratification, and people who don't announce their net worth with designer logos. The millionaire next door stereotype exists for a reason. Many high net worth people drive normal cars and live below their means. But social media sells a different product, visible wealth. The dinners, the vacations, the bags, the rooftop views, the soft life, the surprise gifts, the luxury hotel robe, the first-class cabin shot, the watch hand on the steering wheel. And once that becomes someone's baseline expectation, regular life starts to feel like disrespect. A man can be stable, responsible, and building a future, and still be dismissed because he doesn't perform wealth in a way that photographs well. He can drive a reliable paid-off car and get judged as not ambitious. He can choose a smart financial decision and get labelled cheap. And this is where the whole thing turns into theatre. Some people aren't looking for a partner. They're looking for a lifestyle sponsor who will play the role of my man in a highlight reel. The relationship becomes content. The man becomes a prop. The love becomes a brand. That's why the restaurant expectations are exploding, because the point isn't the meal, it's the price tag, it's the story, it's the social proof, it's, look what I can make someone do for me. And if you're a man watching that, you don't just think, that's expensive. You think, that's a test I can never pass, because the test isn't about love, it's about flexing. So men opt out, not because they hate relationships, but because they don't want to fund a performance. One of the most viral phrases in modern dating is some version of, I know what I deserve, or the infamous, I am the table. In healthy form, this means self-respect. You don't accept disrespect, cheating, lying, or chaos. Great, necessary. In unhealthy form, it becomes, my existence is the value, and your job is to prove you're worthy of access. That's the mindset that turns dating into a one-way evaluation. You'll hear people list non-negotiables like they're hiring for a C-suite role. height minimums, income minimums, property ownership, luxury tastes, no expectations of reciprocity, full acceptance of their situation, and unlimited patience for behavior they refuse to improve. And again, people can have preferences, but preferences don't exist in a vacuum. If your standards select for the top 1% of outcomes, then you're competing for the attention of the top 1% of people in that category. That's just math. What frustrates men isn't even high standards, it's unbalanced standards. Men are used to being judged, they've always been judged. But what's changing is how openly some people say the quiet part out loud. Your value is what you can provide for me materially, and my value is that you want me. And that's where men start to think, so what happens if I get sick? What happens if I lose my job? What happens if my business takes a hit? What happens when I'm not useful? Because a relationship built on extraction is loyal only as long as the extraction continues. A relationship built on partnership asks different questions. Are we aligned on values? Can we solve problems together? Do we respect each other? Can we build something sustainable? And that's what many men say they can't find, not because it doesn't exist, but because the loudest voices online have made it socially acceptable to demand everything while offering nothing but vibes. Dating apps changed the market in a way most people still don't understand. They created a constant stream of attention that feels like proof of value. An average-looking woman can receive hundreds of likes quickly. That doesn't mean hundreds of men want a relationship with her. It means the app is engineered to maximize engagement, and many users swipe widely. But psychologically, it does something powerful. It inflates perceived options. If you're getting endless matches, you start to feel like you're the prize. And if you're a man on those apps, you often experience the opposite: low match rates, high competition, and the sense that you're invisible unless you're exceptional. This imbalance produces two distortions at once. Some women begin to believe they deserve celebrity treatment because attention is constant. Many men begin to believe they must overpay, financially and emotionally, to be considered. Then throw in the reality that some men who are above your league, in looks or status, might still message you for something casual. That attention gets misread as relationship-level interest. So expectations rise, but outcomes don't. And now we're in the weirdest era. People demand more than ever, trust each other less than ever, commit less than ever, and leave faster than ever. So men watch this and decide, if I'm going to be treated like a disposable provider candidate, I'll just remove myself from the market. Not with hatred, with fatigue. Let's talk about the thing nobody wants to say out loud. A portion of modern dating has turned into financial gaming. Some people openly brag about keeping a rotation of men. One for dinners, one for gifts, one for rent help, one for trips. They rebrand it as empowerment, strategy, or dating smart. And yes, historically there have always been transactional relationships. That's not new. What's new is how loudly it's advertised as normal and how casually people admit to using others. When you teach manipulation as a skill, you're not teaching dating, you're teaching exploitation. And you can dress it up in self-care language all you want. If you're accepting benefits from someone who believes you're building something real, while you privately see them as an account to withdraw from, that's not empowerment. That's deception. Men see those clips too. They see the finesse tutorials. They see the scripts. They see the comments cheering it on. And then they start treating dating like a hostile environment. Once that happens, good faith disappears. Every gesture feels like a setup. Every request feels like a test. Every emotion feels like leverage. And even decent women, who would never do those things, end up paying the price because trust collapses in the entire ecosystem. That's the tragedy of it. The loud minority poisons the water for everyone. A huge reason men are checking out isn't just money, it's the endless contradictions. Here's what many men feel they're being asked to do at the same time. Be traditional when it benefits her. Pay, provide, protect. Be modern when it benefits her. No expectations, no authority, full emotional labor. Be emotionally open, but never show weakness. Be confident, but also constantly validate her insecurity. Be ambitious, but always available. Be generous, but never question spending. Lead, but somehow read her mind and lead only where she secretly wanted. That's not a relationship. That's an impossible performance. And on top of that, you've got instant commitment expectations mixed with keep it casual behavior. People want husband-level investment while offering situationship-level consistency. They want exclusivity over your resources while keeping their own options warm. Men experience this as, I'm expected to act like a spouse, but I'm treated like a disposable option. So they stop offering spouse benefits without spouse commitment. They stop funding strangers. They stop overextending. They stop chasing. And then everyone acts shocked when the men with the most stability and self-control become the hardest ones to lock down, because they're no longer desperate for access. They've learned to enjoy peace. There's a line I keep hearing in different forms. Peace alone beats chaos together. A lot of men aren't leaving because they hate women. They're leaving because they've realized something simple. Being alone is calmer than being constantly evaluated, criticized, tested, and billed. When a man is single, his life might not be glamorous, but it's predictable. He knows his expenses. He knows his routines. He knows his goals. He can build without someone turning every disagreement into a moral trial. And for many men, that calm becomes addictive. They start investing in friendships, health, business, hobbies, travel, and personal growth. They stop chasing the approval of someone who treats their effort as the minimum. And here's the part that really matters. Once a man has built a peaceful life alone, he becomes extremely selective about who gets access to it. You can't shame him out of that. You can't bully him into risk. You can't call him immature and expect him to sign a contract he doesn't trust. If you want him to choose partnership, the partnership has to be better than his solitude. That's the new standard, and it's rational. Try bringing up any of this online and watch what happens. If a man says, I'm worried about divorce risk, some people respond with, so you hate women. If he says, I want a woman who contributes, some respond with, so you want to control her. If he says, I don't want to pay for everything, some respond with, broke behavior. And on the other side, when women talk about safety, emotional availability, or past experiences, some men dismiss it as drama or manipulation. So nobody listens. Everyone labels, everyone defends their team, and the algorithm rewards the most extreme version of every opinion. That makes resolution impossible, because resolution requires honesty without humiliation. The truth is, men and women both have legitimate grievances in modern dating. There are men who use women. There are women who use men. There are people who lie, people who cheat, people who manipulate, people who are entitled, people who are cruel. But if every conversation becomes, your side is evil, the only winning move is to stop playing. And that's what a lot of men did. They didn't win the argument. They just exited the arena. Let's define a deal that doesn't feel rigged. A fair relationship deal is not 50-50 on every penny, every time. Real life doesn't work like that. Sometimes one person carries more financially. Sometimes one person carries more emotionally. Sometimes one person is in a rough season and the other steps up. But fairness does require reciprocity, respect, and realism. A fair deal sounds like, I value effort, not entitlement. I'm willing to build, not just receive. My standards apply to me too. I want peace, not power. If we're serious, we talk about money honestly. Income, debt, goals, spending habits. If we want marriage, we talk about expectations and protections like adults. And yes, that includes uncomfortable conversations. Budgets, timelines, kids, lifestyle, family roles, values, and what happens if things go wrong. Mature couples talk about worst-case scenarios, not because they expect failure, but because planning protects love from resentment. The healthiest relationships I've seen are rarely the loudest online. They're quiet. They're private. They're boring to spectators. They're not built for applause. They're built for stability. And that's why social media warps everything. It makes stable love look basic and makes chaotic luxury look like success. If you want a real relationship, you have to unlearn what the feed taught you to crave. So why are millions of men choosing single life? Not because they're all angry, not because they're all intimidated, not because they can't get dates. A lot of them are leaving because The expectations feel disconnected from reality. The cultural messaging feels adversarial. The legal and financial risks feel asymmetrical. The effort demanded feels unlimited, while appreciation feels scarce. And the modern dating environment increasingly rewards manipulation over sincerity. Men aren't rejecting women as human beings. They're rejecting deals that treat them as utilities. Pay, provide, perform, prove, repeat. And until the culture starts celebrating mutual contribution again, until it becomes attractive to be a teammate instead of a taker, more men will continue to choose peace. Because the world has changed. Men can live fulfilling lives without being selected. They can build community, meaning, and stability without marriage. They can have purpose without a relationship. So if someone wants a good man today, the pitch can't be, "You should feel lucky I exist." The pitch has to be, "Life with me is better than life alone, because I bring peace, loyalty, respect, and real partnership." That's the only offer that beats solitude. And now I want to hear from you, genuinely, not as a gender war thing, but as a reality check. What's the most unrealistic expectation you've personally encountered while dating? What made you step back and say, "This isn't worth it"? And if you're in a healthy relationship, what do you think you and your partner did differently that actually worked? Drop your stories and perspectives in the comments. Keep it respectful. If we can't talk about this honestly, we're going to keep watching people quietly walk away and pretending not to understand why. Nothing mentioned in this chat constitutes financial advice.